Everything I am, they hate. Everything I say, they hate.
You've managed to go through being f***ed up to becoming one of the best fighters in the world.
Yeah.
That's the hard path.
Sean Strickland just did again. The man who was written off, laughed at, and given less than a 1 in 5 shot at winning walked into the Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey on May 9th, 2026, and ripped the UFC middleweight title off the waist of the most feared, most dominant, most hyped
Masters of the Universe, witness how he became He-Man.
In a shocking upset, Strickland became the first man to defeat Khamzat Chimaev, dethroning the feared Chechen with a split decision victory. Two-time champion, two-time shocker, and still...
That's it! There it is! Sean Strickland!
So today we are breaking down every reason why fighters across this sport are genuinely scared of Sean Strickland. Let's get into it. The man the whole MMA world counted out. Again, Sean Thomas Strickland, born February 27th, 1991, competes in the middleweight division of the UFC, where he is now the current and two-time UFC middleweight champion at 35 years old. If you had told anyone in the MMA community even 6 months ago that he would be holding that belt again after everything that happened, they would have laughed in your face. Here is what makes Strickland so psychologically terrifying to fight. It is not just that he is dangerous. It is that he does not care. Not about your reputation, not about your undefeated record, not about your hype, not about the outcome.
You're going to see 5 rounds of him getting the utter shit kicked out of him.
Entering UFC 328, Khamzat Chimaev was making the first defense of his middleweight championship against former champion Sean Strickland, with the betting line sitting at Chimaev as a minus 575 favorite. That means for every $100 you wanted to win, you had to put up almost $600. The world was so convinced that Chimaev would destroy him that Strickland's odds to win by decision were listed at plus 850. But here's the thing about Sean Strickland. The bigger the mountain, the more he seems to enjoy the climb. Strickland himself admitted he heard that voice in his head going into fight week. He said, "We all kind of have this voice in our head. You don't think there's a voice in my head that sees a big, angry Chechen with a beard? You see him just run through everybody in the division. You don't think I have a voice in my head saying, oh shit, oh shit? We all have that voice. You just sack up and be the man you want to be." That right there is the answer. That is why fighters are scared of him. He hears the doubt, acknowledges it, and then walks straight through it anyway. What do you do against a man like that? The upset machine. What he did to Israel Adesanya. But let's rewind first, because you cannot understand UFC 328 without understanding where this whole story really started. It started in Sydney, Australia on September 9th, 2023. At UFC 293, Sean Strickland stunned Nigerian-born New Zealander Israel Adesanya to take the middleweight title by unanimous decision in the main event. The 32-year-old Strickland, who caused a stir in the lead-up to the fight with controversial comments, won a 5-round decision with all 3 judges scoring at 49-46.
49-46 for the winner. And
49-46 on all 3 cards. That was not a close call or a lucky punch. That was a complete systematic dismantling of the greatest middleweight striker the sport had ever seen on Adesanya's home turf in front of his own fans. Strickland was a plus 475 underdog in that fight. Plus 475. Nobody believed in him. And he went out there and completely outpointed a generational talent. What did Strickland say about it after standing in that cage, tears almost coming? He said, "Am I dreaming? Am I going to wake up? Someone hit me. I don't cry much, but I'm trying to keep it together right now." And earlier, reflecting on fighting Adesanya, he admitted, "You don't fight that guy with that many highlight reel knockouts. The majority of my friends, he beats pretty easily. I was even kind of doubting myself at times." Doubt himself. He still beat you by 3 rounds on every card. That is the Strickland paradox. He tells you he is scared. He tells you he doubts himself. And then he goes out and makes you look like an amateur. Terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. The road back. 2 painful losses and a comeback nobody expected. Here is where it gets even more impressive. After beating Adesanya, Strickland did not cruise into some comfortable reign. He lost the belt, not once but twice. Dricus Du Plessis dethroned Strickland in an entertaining bloody back-and-forth fight at UFC 297, with the final result a split decision of 48-47 for Du Plessis. Then in February 2025, Du Plessis defended his belt with a unanimous win over Strickland, winning 50-45, 50-45, 49-46. Back-to-back losses to the same guy, his nose destroyed, his title gone. Most fighters at that point enter the long, slow decline. The excuses start, the fire goes out. Not Sean Strickland. Wins over Paulo Costa and Anthony Hernandez put Strickland back in a position to fight for the title again, and he took full advantage. And who had the belt? Du Plessis made his third title defense against undefeated contender Khamzat Chimaev at UFC 319 and lost the title via unanimous decision. Chimaev was now the boogeyman of the division. Unbeaten, unstoppable. And guess who the UFC called next? Sean Strickland, a man on a 2-fight win streak against the most dominant champion in recent memory. And nobody wanted to give him a shot. The man has lived his entire career being underestimated, and every single time he takes that disrespect and weaponizes it. That is why fighters are scared of him. Fight week from hell. Threats, kicks, and security on every corner. Now let's talk about the lead up to UFC 328, because this was one of the most insane fight weeks in modern MMA history. Not simulated beef for the cameras, but real, genuine, nuclear-level animosity. It started long before fight week. Strickland's stretch championship fight trash talk well beyond the usual mechanisms to sell a UFC card, so that when he both threatened to shoot Khamzat Chimaev and labeled him a terrorist, there was only one way for their first face-off to go down. He threatened to shoot him out loud in public to media members. Strickland elaborated on why, saying, "Not in Jersey because we're in a communist state, but in Vegas, if I walk outside and there's 3 Chechens, I legally can put a bullet in each and every one of them." Why? Because in America, we value being a man. In America, we value one-on-one fights. We value stand your ground. What we don't value is being a weak third-worlder who threatens with friends. It's such a soft mentality. Chimaev's response, he leaned into it. "I am terrorist for him," Chimaev said at the press conference before shouting that he was going to kill Strickland. 6***. Then came the weigh-ins. Chimaev and Strickland had made big threats and already delivered somewhat, with Chimaev kicking Strickland at the pre-fight press conference. Kicked him. Just wound up and kicked him in the groin with UFC security and Dana White standing right there. On the day of the weigh-ins, as soon as Chimaev hit the stage and jumped off the scale, he was ushered back by multiple security guards who would not let him get within 10 feet of Strickland. As the American continued to hurl insults over the microphone, the UFC beefed up security across the hotels and promised increased safeguards inside the Prudential Center to diffuse the heightened tensions among the fighters, their camps, and fans who had taken sides in the feud. And Strickland stood there smiling, trash-talking through the microphone, completely unbothered. That unshakable mentality is exactly what makes him so frightening. Most fighters would crack under that kind of pressure. He feeds off it, the sparring war that started it all. Now, here's a detail that many casual fans missed, but it is crucial context. This rivalry did not start at a press conference. Strickland had welcomed Chimaev into the Extreme Couture gym in 2022, and they briefly worked out together while at the time competing in separate divisions. For years, both men argued about what happened in those sessions. Chimaev claimed he bullied Strickland. Strickland claimed Chimaev only wanted to beat up on weaker fighters and avoided him. Right before UFC 328 fight week, Chimaev decided to release footage of their spar to prove his dominance. Big mistake. Khamzat Chimaev released a new video from his storied sparring session with Sean Strickland, but fans were not impressed. Chimaev captioned the video with a laughing emoji and the message, "I am bullying weak people." But whatever Chimaev was looking to accomplish by releasing this clip seems to have gone the opposite way, with fans mocking him. Over 600,000 people watched the original post alone, and many commenters believe it was far from an impressive few seconds from Chimaev. Strickland's reaction, he went scorched earth. calling Chimeev out directly, saying, "The guy is just a little rat, dude. I didn't know we were filming, and those were little warm-up rounds." He then added, "We only sparred once. We did like a 3-round spar. When I go to a gym, I want to spar the best guy. I wanted to spar him, but he wanted to just go beat up the lower-level guys." Talk about a psychological edge. Chimeev tried to rattle him with footage and instead rallied the entire MMA fan base behind Strickland. Strickland turned a potential embarrassment into a PR win before the first bell even rang. UFC 328, round by round, the night the boogeyman lost. Now, the fight itself, May 9th, 2026, Prudential Center, Newark, New Jersey. Let's break it down. Round 1 was exactly what everyone expected and feared. The champion dominated the opening frame with his wrestling, keeping Strickland stuck on the canvas for the duration of the round. Chimeev took Strickland down within 20 seconds, just like he has done to every single opponent in his career. He worked rear naked choke attempts, back control body locks. Strickland was in survival mode for 5 full minutes. One judge scored it 10-8. But here's what was different. Strickland was not panicking. He was hand-fighting constantly, blocking the choke attempts, surviving intelligently. Chimeev drowned Strickland under a deluge of takedowns, back control, and rear naked choke attempts throughout much of the opening round, but never got the finish. And for Khamzat Chimeev against a guy like Strickland, that 5-minute effort had a price. Round 2, the whole fight flipped. Strickland survived that early storm and recaptured control in the second frame, easily fending off Chimeev's 2 takedown attempts while peppering the now former champ with jabs and combinations. Not great. 2 takedown attempts. That is all Chimeev had. He looked gassed, confused. For the first time in his career, Khamzat Chimeev looked human. The result, Strickland ended up on top, landing ground and pound on the most feared grappler in the division. The world turned upside down. In Chimeev's corner between rounds, you could hear his cornermen frantically trying to calm him down. That is not what you want to hear from your team when there's still 3 rounds left. Chimeev appeared to tire after the opening round. Let me know if you need the remaining part from 12 minutes onward rewritten as well.